seat because it's warm today. Let's say, Our Father, who art in the heavens, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, as in heaven, so upon the earth. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we also forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen. Your word, O Lord, is a light to our path, and a lamp to our feet. So have a seat and we'll just move through this song. I did turn it on, but it didn't come on. No sound. One. Yeah, okay, that's good. We are one in the Spirit, we are one in the Lord. We are one in the Spirit, we are one in the Lord. We pray that all unity may one day be restored, and they'll know we are Christians by our love, by our love. Yes, they'll know we are Christians by our love. We shall walk with each other, we shall walk hand in hand. We shall walk with each other, we shall walk hand in hand. And together we'll spread the news that God is in our land. And they'll know we are Christians by our love, by our love. Yes, they'll know we are Christians by our love. I'm happy to say that abiding in the vine is certainly becoming one of my favourite times when we have a service. And every time I tackle another virtue to look at, I'm always brought to some point of awe at what lies deeper. Take a thought for a moment. You know, we say a fair young maiden or a fair young man. You know, fairness. You know, the use of the word is suggesting something innocent, something untainted, something of quality. And we like to say in Australia, give them a fair go. Don't we like to say that? Give them a fair go.
Un-Australian.
It's very Australian, but we really think about what does that mean? You know, like give them a fair go. And of course, when we begin to work with these virtues, back to the source, God, that's where we're always moved with awe, where our cultures, our thoughts, our values, our ideas come from. It's a question. Why do we value a soul? And we have this debate around abortion. When's the point where the soul comes in and it's alive? You know, but why? Can anyone sort of suggest for me why? Like, I mean, we take that for granted, don't we? We just say, well, yeah, there's a soul there. That's valuable. Life? Okay, so life, but life, you know, sometimes life... Possibility. Because, I mean, you know, we eat animals in most cultures on this planet. You eat plants, you're taking its life, isn't it? So life sometimes gives way for other life. But I like that definition of possibilities, isn't it? Any other suggestions why We would even stop at the point of debating when the soul, I mean, I don't have an answer when the soul comes into the body. You know, I can't say definitively right at the moment of conception. I lean there. Yeah. Isn't it? I lean there. But why is it valuable? Why? Ian, what do you think? Why do we value soul?
Well, we're God-fearing people, and all of creation is to be respected,
right,
used for the purpose for which it's created. And I think there's a sense of holiness about the word soul. The soul of another human being is God's work.
God's work. Wow.
Creating a process. So I'm very mindful of the respect and the awe that needs to be there when we're handling something so precious and of God's work in our midst.
That's beautifully said, Ian. Can I just take a moment to just go a little bit with that word respect? Because for me, respect is today's core issue. We hear all these different ideologies around tolerance, red herring, absolute red herring, okay? Because what we're really crying out for is respect, isn't it? Tolerance is not the right word. You know, you see, I think it's in the British there, the British government, they have the 3 values. What are they? Freedom, justice, and tolerance. Should be respect. Tolerance is not right. I mean, okay, I respect other cultures, but I don't have to necessarily tolerate their practices. We have our own practices. There's respect. I think that we get this whole issue confused because we lift up tolerance to the word respect, and it's not the same. So Ian's really, really nailed it here with this word respect. Okay, and fairness too, this idea of what it means to be a fair person. Give them a go. Fair go. That fairness is actually coming right back to the sacredness of each soul. If you hold that, if you just keep that idea with you all your days, each soul is sacred. Well, you don't have to tolerate them. You don't have to tolerate their choices, but you respect them. There's this sense of, you know, their soul is existent because it's connected to God. The writings actually teach us that if the Lord were to withdraw for even but a moment, that soul would cease to exist. So when I'm struggling with someone, I tell myself, they're still here on this planet. God sees it fit that they're still here. I will have respect. And I give them a fair go. I want to talk a little bit more about this as we move on today, because judgment comes into this too. Okay. Brock Harris. Anyone heard about Brock Harris back in October last year on ABC? 12 hours of working. It was a really hot day. He says it hit 39. I don't know. People challenge that. He'd been driving home, and he was contemplating the fact that he had no air conditioning. I don't know, he was in his car, he didn't have any air conditioning, or at home he didn't. He pulls over, he goes into a shop, he gets a cold bottle of water, he continues back home, he pulls into his street as he's sipping the water, and the police pull him over and give him a $173 fine and 1 demerit point. I'm bringing this up because, you know, what's fair? Where's fairness lie in all this? I mean, police have to exercise a certain amount of judgment. And I struggled with this one. I tell you what, I've had a cup of tea. I always have a cup of tea or something in my car, and I haven't been reaching for it anymore. I've been questioning, you know, could I get pulled over? But there was when this man went to the ABC and he said he got this fine and he got it for drinking water, well, the police responded in kind and said, no, we sent no such fine for drinking water. But we do have a right to do that. You know, you could be fined for eating and drinking, they say, if you are distracted in your driving. Okay, fair enough. That's fair, isn't it? There's a fairness in that. In his view, he just pulled into his street, sipping some water, and got done. He didn't think it was quite fair. Just 2 weeks ago, I was reading something about the neurobiology of our brain. I love looking at the neurobiology of our brain. And I was reading how, and it's just interesting how different information comes in and changes your view a little, pushes you a little bit. Dehydration, Ian, you and I were talking about this. If your lips are a bit dry, maybe they're feeling a bit dry right now because it's been a very warm, humid morning. The moment your lips are dry, you're feeling that little bit dehydrated, science says your brain is already impeded. There's a nurse here nodding her head. Our brain is already impeded to the point of being under the influence of alcohol. Oh, wow, doesn't that change? You know, imagine if they bring in a law, because we've got these laws now saying, you know, $1,000 fine for touching a phone. I can agree with that. Make it hard. Make it harsh. But then it becomes a question, doesn't it? I reached over and grabbed my bottle of water. But then, you know, you could argue, well, if I'm staying hydrated, I'm safer, isn't it? Now, look, I'm saying all of this to highlight how being fair involves a certain amount of trying to make a judgment call. And you can only make those calls on the facts you have, isn't it? 2 weeks ago, I didn't know that my body, a little dehydrated, made me drive as if I was inebriated. It's interesting. You know, facts change things. Information, knowledge, truth changes our judgments. Now, this is why the Lord said, judge not. Matthew 7, judge not. No, Matthew 5, verse 7 and 1. Judge not, or no, 7, judge not lest you be judged. And the measure that you meet will be measured back to you. Guess who measures it back at you? The Lord? Not even the Lord, Gay. It's your own brain. It's your own ego. It's the rules we carry in our head. Whenever I judge someone, my ego is formulating rules. Isn't it? Rules. And those rules, equally, the ego will use back on us. It does. And I think what I'm stressing here is that we always need to reserve reserve our judgment in terms of wisdom. I don't know exactly all the details why that person did what they did. I wouldn't do that. Or if I compare it to the scriptures and what is right and wrong, that's certainly wrong. But the Lord's saying, just reserve being judgmental, because you don't know all the facts. The Lord does. And then that's when the Lord does come in and make a value judgment. What's really fascinating too is that whenever God makes a judgment, all he's really doing is ordering. Isn't that a nice way of looking at it? I love the way you said it a few weeks ago, Ian. You know, God's wrath is really God's passion to want to heal, to heal the problems of life. He comes down with a passion to want to fix things. So God's judgment is really just reordering. Everything needs to be in its order. The good separated to the good, evil separated to evil, truth with truth, and falsity with falsity. It's a reordering process inside us. And so this is why we've got to be reserved in our judgments. Let's have a look here on the front. Fairness. Fairness is the conviction that all people are sacred creations of the divine. So that's where we're going to go with this virtue. If you can begin to affect your thinking, let me try and deal with all people as sacred in God's eyes, not their choices, not their decisions, not their actions, but they are sacred, then I can exercise a level of non-judgmental fairness in the situation. So fairness is a conviction people are sacred creations of the divine. This virtue seeks to treat everyone thoughtfully and from a place of wisdom. Fairness longs for everyone to receive love, care, and their rightful humanitarian needs met. Boy, who can feel political issues wanting to rise up there when you read those kind of things, isn't it? You know. But if we have respect, whatever the political issue is, if we have respect, we can't go wrong. There are actually two certainties I want us to take away today about fairness. One has to do with God and one has to do with us. So we'll come back to that. And it will help with our political battles. Should I pick every political battle? No. Only pick the ones that the Lord is telling you that you're meant to be fighting for. Right? Because you build the house in vain if God isn't building it with you. Prejudice must step aside. I like that. You know, prejudice must step aside and allow for the voice of all to be heard. Now, if you have respect,
you'll let a person's voice be heard. But so often, people with entitled attitude want their voice to be heard and then want to shut down other people's voices. It's a lack of respect. It's a lack of accepting that they are a sacred, sovereign being under God. Each unique voice deserves the respect to be allowed to share and to contribute to the courtroom of ideas. Fairness never seeks to... Oh, yes, Ian, yes.
Not necessarily agree. In fact, I think it says we doesn't agree with a lot of things that are said in this parliament.
Right.
But that he will give his right arm
Wow.
for people to be allowed to express their point of view. There's some famous statement he made. I haven't captured it properly, but I've actually seen it filmed. When he actually did the black and white, looking at his glasses, and he said something very similar to that. And I've never forgotten that, because he said each unique voice deserves the respect to be allowed to share and contribute to the program of ideas. I also wonder about another thing, and that is, none of us has the complete story.
No.
Where truth or insight or understanding is concerned. It's an arrogance on our part if we're not willing to listen to points of view which may, in fact, first contradict our own, but also modify and help us to see things
And isn't it a case that if we just take the Lord's words and live them, we avoid so many of these pitfalls?
Yeah.
Judge not. And the measure you meet to others is going to live inside your head and judge you. And it won't do it, the ego is very subtle. It won't necessarily try and puff you up while it tears you down. It's very clever like that. Now that's, Ian, even the idea of him saying, I'll give my right arm. Last week we talked about the returning son, and the father saying, give him a ring. And Ian said, hang on, let's stop here for a moment. The ring, well, you this kind of fluffy idea of give a wedding ring and it's like eternity, it's round. A much better understanding of the ring.
from the writings.
From the writings, much better understanding of the ring is a transfer of trust and power. Empowerment. And Jesus said, from this point on, you'll see the Son sitting at the right hand of God, coming in the clouds of heaven. That means we would see the power of God will rest in the clouds of heaven, the literal sense of the word. That's where we'll see it. Saying you'll give your right arm is saying, I'll give up my power for others. I'll give up my power that others may be empowered. It's a very, very bold, beautiful statement, isn't it? And I want people to interrupt. Please do interrupt. It's not, this is about us exploring fairness as a virtue that we can practice. Fairness never seeks to dominate others. Wow, think about that. It never seeks to dominate others or dictate the outcome. Instead, it desires to make the way plain and clear for all. Now, someone said to me once, years ago, I like this imagery, let's just put all the ideas in the middle of the table and the truth will kind of rise up in among them. I thought, I like that kind of imagery. Because you're not owning them either. Let's just put the idea there, like a mind mapping sort of idea. And there's this idea that fairness says, well, let's everybody be giving a voice. In Proverbs it says, wisdom is found in the counsel of the multitude. It doesn't say wisdom is the counsel of the multitude, but it will be found in the counsel of the multitude. So the more we're willing to take in new ideas and listen and be prospective, the more we can really find wisdom. Instead, it desires to make the way plain and clear for all. It abhors favoritism, interesting, Do you think fairness abhors favouritism? It does, doesn't it? Yeah. It abhors favouritism and bias, and will work tirelessly to empower and restore agency to those who have been oppressed. We all love the underdog, don't we? There's something in us that has attraction to seeing the underdog rise up too and be recognised. So it restore agency to those who've been oppressed, abused, manipulated by the unjust, wicked-hearted. Okay, so that's... Oh. Oh, okay. Yes. Yes. Wow. Yeah. Yes. Beautiful. Wow. Yes. 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 A good challenge. Well, all of these virtues ultimately do point back to God, don't they? They just... Here's how I sort of hold this idea. It's built into our psychology, right? We need meaning. There was, Nietzsche who said that without meaning, we become nihilistic, right? But his solution was, allow yourself to have your own meaning. And I think, okay, fair enough. Where my understanding is that that's why God gives us sacred texts and the spiritual sense of sacred texts, because then we can have that higher meaning. That's the waters above coming down. Okay, so look at the model of the church. The church has gone to truth and says there's meaning. Then it establishes teachings. There's values. And then it says, here is doctrine. Here is a way to live it, a way to practice it. Okay, rules for life. But the thing about when you get to rules is the ego loves to latch onto it, both the higher and lower ego. We like those rules, and boy, do we like them. Okay, but there's nothing wrong with that. When you think about government, they do it the other way around. They say, this is the kind of virtuous society we want, so these are the values we have, and now here's the rules. And we get our meaning out of those rules, isn't it? But the church was saying, look, you've got to start with meaning. What's the meaning in life? Truth. Come back to the truth. Out of that meaning, we develop values. Okay, so I don't value swearing. I don't value swearing. Why? Go a little deeper. Because I want to speak positive, life-giving words. So there's the actual value. It's speaking life. So then on top of that, you build virtue. Now, heaven is virtue. It's power. Heaven is power. The power to be good. But that power flows into us, and we manifest really unique virtues like fairness. And that's why it's such a challenging, and it's because it's actually a God thing. All of these virtues we've been looking at are God qualities coming down onto the human skin in a skin-on level. It's really amazing. So, if I have the value of not speaking life, I'll have virtues like being disciplined, being consistent, being diligent. All these virtues now come together to support my values. So what values you pick in life are determining who you're becoming in your character and the virtues that you manifest. That's why I love so much looking at these. Okay, so fairness, it's coming out of, let's have a look. So we're going to tame our life here. Take a moment exploring your life. or examining your life, tame your life. Think about fairness and how that's been instrumental in your life to enhance the quality of living for you. You know, when Mao was killing 60 million people, was that fair? You know, when Mussolini was murdering people, you know, what things in your life now are you enjoying because of this virtue, fairness, and the valuing of the sacredness of each person? So how might you adjust some of your own thinking now and some of your attitudes to increase this virtue for others around you? Come on, mate, give them a fair go. That's kind of what we're saying. What can you adjust? Okay, I'm going to think about this now. I'm going to see, you know, even my little children, they're sacred souls. As much as I want to pull them into line, how can I now work with this a little bit to just be a little fairer? In that sense, you don't have to be so quick to jump on them. Yes. Well, nice. Firm but fair. See how we come up with these rules? And they're good. You know, the heavenly ego has good rules. Firm but fair. But the lower ego, it's the tyrant with its rules, isn't it? That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Firm but fair. I like that one. So let's have a look. Would you mind reading to us some of the definitions from the dictionary? That's tough. Thoughts on that? Without favouritism, without discriminating? Like getting a sip of water when you're driving your car? To the letter of the law, not the spirit. The letter kills, but the spirit brings life. And that's exactly how we approach the Bible, isn't it? Not the letter of the law, but the spirit of it. Yeah, that's beautifully said. Well done. Okay, not discriminating. Now that word discriminate has a connection to discerning, but my understanding is that God wants us to discern as best we can with all the facts and knowledge we have, but don't pass judgment. Don't pass judgment. I don't know why that person became an alcoholic. I can be discerning and not offer them a beer, you know, but I could be discerning, just don't pass judgment. That's a challenge, isn't it? Look at this scripture. I asked Ian, so I want to put something up on the internet for fairness. Can you know, I'd like that one about angels only see good. You know, Ian, help me find it within seconds. 1079, Darren, in the Secrets of Heaven. Those who have faith that inheres in charity. So if you've got this virtue of charity or love in your life, and you've got faith, you're living out of that faith, they will notice the good. And if they do see evils and falsities, they excuse them. And if possible, endeavour with that person to correct them. That last bit's really nice. So they're not just being oblivious or ignoring them, but they're saying, I don't know all the facts. Let me support you in what you're going through. You shouldn't be an alcoholic. Can I support you to get free of that? Very different, isn't it? You know, like, you know, I'm so glad I'm not like that alcoholic over there, God. Don't want to be like that, do we? No, that's not, yeah. So in fairness, I don't know everything you've been through. And that's what I should always remember. Okay. So, Ken, you want to read some synonyms there for us? Throw them out at us. Cinnamon. Yum. Donuts. Charitableness, there's that charitableness, nice. What jumped out at someone? Just quickly, which one jumped? Did any jump out at you particularly, Tracy? Yeah, that jumped out at me too. Yeah. Takes real integrity, Hagwan, to be able to keep seeing people as sacred when they're choosing really bad choices for their life. It takes real integrity. Yeah. Ian, did any of those hit new light for you? They're all fairly comfortable with all of those? would you want to move on? Tracy, would you mind reading? You want to read antonyms? Yep. Oof. Mm. Mm. There's the disrespect. Nice. I forgot that was in there. Anything jump out at anyone? Disrespect is, yeah, it is good, isn't it? Yeah. Which, right next to disregard too, isn't it? Yeah. All of them. Don't you? Yeah. Oh, yes. What about deception? You know, we're so quick to criticise somebody else's driving, and you know, I still have to keep reminding myself, always shoulder check. Yes. Yeah. Not just to look at the mirror. When you're rushed, you can just, habits are beautiful things, aren't they? Until they're habits we don't want. Bad manners, I thought about that. Renee told me recently they're going to bring out a law where you get fined for swearing. Well, okay, that could be helpful. You know, when my kids are out in public, they don't need to hear every bleat and bleat and bleat, do they? They don't need that. So in public, swearing in public, of course. Yeah. Sorry. Yes, wearing full stop, yes, so that's true too. So it's about that respect again, isn't it? We need that. Ah, it will soon. They're going to upgrade it, so it'll be a major stop. Mm-hmm. You got a hospital there. Look, I was at the park with Zay the other day, and this gentleman turns up with his little boy in a wheelchair. Really extreme autism. I immediately thought it must be a dystrophy, but it wasn't. And Zadie said, "Oh, Dad, look at the chair he's in." I said, "Yes, he needs that." And Daddy's playing with it. He said, "Yeah, I bet it needs lots of adjustment." And Dad turned around and smiled and chatted to us. He said, "Anytime people notice my son, I'm so happy to chat to them." Well, that's nice. He said, because people just look the other way. He said, because his son's even got a little kid in his hand, he said, "Or I get this all the time, someone will pass me and said, don't you think he's old enough not to have thank you, a dummy?" And he said, and the father turned around and asked, he said, "Yeah, it would be really good if, he didn't chew his lips and tongues to pieces to the point of bleeding." And the guy was kind of red-faced and shamed. But he went on to say that continually people feel the right to comment on him and his son. I said, "I don't believe it." He said, "Really?" Maybe I don't get out into public enough, but I just, and I'm probably not as much a target, but I couldn't believe that people feel the right. Because to me, your rights are a big part of what this fairness, people use fairness to push their rights, don't they? Well, you have a right to respect other people too, Don't let your rights override the respect of other people, because that's what's happening. Get a lot of, and I was saying this to Ian the other day, I was just meditating on this rise of this younger generation who are being educated in a certain way, and they're saying socialism and communism and and they're talking like this, and it's like, do you realise we all stand on the shoulders of giants? We live free today because somebody gave their life, be it in war, fighting other kinds of oppressive government. We're here today. And you have a right to just shoot your mouth off. And yet, where's the respect? And then you shut other people down because they don't see your view, right? And it's all this entitlement. Entitlement. But fairness is about respect. There you go. Yes. Yeah, they are, aren't they? Oh, atoms usually are with these virtues when you're dealing with virtues. Yes. Yes. Oh, yes. Yes. Mm. Yes. Yes. Well said, Ian. And of course, that to me is the value in. I mean, I put them there, antonyms there, to try and give us greater access to what this virtue really is. But you very wisely have added additional motivation there, to want it. That's great. I like that approach. That's good. Okay, so going on to quotes. Tracy, you want to read the first quote? Isn't that an amazing quote? Yes. Isn't that amazing? I think if you're a bit of a hippie, you'd know the Doors, wouldn't you? You know, Jim Morrison. He was quoted. He was famous to say, "No one gets out of here alive." Yeah, it's clever. No one gets out of here alive. Good on him for provoking people to realise, because how asleep are people? They're just going along, not realising. Yeah, that's good, isn't it? What a whole new idea to fairness too. And I want to touch. Well, maybe now's a good time to touch on it. Look, I said I want to give you two certainties about fairness. One, we'll just deal with this first. God can be trusted. Always. Even though our senses sometimes tell us differently, don't they? God can always be trusted. And I thought a lot about putting lots of passages in here about the trustworthiness of God and what the scriptures say and what the writings have to say. But just nailing it here, the writings will say, look, sometimes we look and we think, why isn't that wicked person being dealt with? In fact, they're making money, they're wealthy, they're doing really well. But the Lord is always considering the ultimate salvation of all souls. All souls. So he's working for our salvation, but he's also working for theirs, and he's working for everyone's. He has to pull all these threads together and make it work. So David's lamentations in the Psalms. Why, Lord, are the wicked prospering? He gets through it. There's lots of Psalms like this. But it's natural for us to go, can I trust you, God? And the answer from the scriptures emphatically is yes. Say after me. Say, Lord, all things work out good for me as I am called according to your purpose, and I love you. Amen. That's Romans 8:28. All things work out for good for those who love God and are called according to his purposes. So next time you're feeling like, Lord, why? Just there's a scriptural promise. Why did that happen? All things work out for good. God isn't all things. I'm not saying God is those circumstances. God's in there working all the circumstances for our good. And we take rest in that. Yeah? Fairness, yeah. Yeah. Tough one to reconcile, isn't it? Mm, mm, mm. Yes, beautifully said. That would be missing. Missing. That's beautifully said. The way I look at rich, the way I process it for my own spiritual benefit to not get stuck in David's lamentations, I look at it this way, that rich people, they love wealth. They love pursuing wealth. They love making wealth. So they like making jobs. They like economies booming. They like to see prosperity for themselves, but it's in their benefit to see the prosperity for others. And I think of that analogy that the rising tide lifts all the boats. And so, yes, capitalism has its evils and it's going across the world doing this, but, there's way less poverty on the planet than there was just 100 years ago. And this is, these are things, I just see it that way. God's got they're all driving and the wealth, let them be. God's got a plan there. They're helping build good economies, isn't it? Yeah. That's how I process it anyway. Okay. So that's my first point. Sorry. You want me to find a Bible for you? I was going to bring one this morning. I thought, go and grab it. So while Gay's doing that, I'll just reiterate this first certainty. God is the fairest of all fair and can be trusted in all our situations, can be trusted that he will work all things to good. And I also take that to say, well, Lord, help me get me more into line with your program. Help me get me more into line with your program so that I need to suffer less unnecessarily. Isn't it? Suffer less unnecessarily. Help me get more in line with your program. God will work all things for good. Oh, that's good, Gay. Bring that as well, yeah. We'll pray for that just before we finish Okay, so that's it. Let's keep going with the quotes, and then when we get towards the end, I want to give you that other certainty about ourselves. Ian, that one there on Victor Hugo. Ooh, that stings. Being a goody-goody is easy. Being just. Why would that be? What's he saying? What's he getting at? What's he driving at? Discrimination? Yep. Could I sort of highlight, the writings say that plenty of people are willing to be good if that gets them the next job, gets them voted in, gets them more power, gets them more money, and that's not really good. Because that good ends up becoming bad. Many people can be good, but to be just, yes, man, those rules, those ego rules, inner beliefs, those rules that we all are forced to live by, just requires thinking of others. Good is how I live and present myself. Just is how I live in terms of impacting you and what that means for you in your life and what are you getting out of how I'm living and what I'm doing. Yeah, it's beautiful. Isn't he an amazing fellow, the old Victor Hugo? Yes. Who's a reader of the writings? I didn't know that. Oh, Victor. Oh, of course, from the romantic. Yeah, right. So, Gay, would you read Rick Riordan? Isn't that a good? Look, I used to work with this co-worker with the children, and he was trying to get this point across to the kids. He was trying to shift their thinking, and I didn't like the way he did it. I couldn't settle, but he'd just say, "That isn't fair," and he'd say, "Life isn't fair," and I'd arc up at that because God is life, God is fair, but he was trying to sort of, he's struggling to articulate this point. Life isn't about you getting your fair share suck of the bottle, sauce bottle, is it? That old saying. Life is fair for your salvation. God is working everything to make sure that you're becoming who you need to become. You get your fair share, you might just get hell as well. But we were created to be unique expressions of good and truth. So the best version of me is that version that's manifesting goods and truth, the virtues. I'm manifesting virtues. Yeah, that's so well said, Gay. That's so well said, yeah. All right, so do you want to read another one, Gay? Oh. Yeah, or as many sides as possible, because there's even more than two sides often, isn't there? Ah! Which chef said that?
I'm not sure.
Tracy?
No.
That was it,
Someone
Tracy?
told me. So I like that.
Tracy, yeah. All right, Guan, do you want to read for us Psalm 106, verse 3? Beautiful. Does that say anything more to you about being a fair person? Fair in your work, fair in your home, fair in how you treat others? Notice it says keep judgment, not pass. That's it. Yeah. All the time. God is good all the time. Yeah, that's really good, Glenn. That's good. So do we jump? Ken, do you want to read Proverbs 16:11?
Just weight and balance are the Lord. All the weights of the bag are his word.
A just weight and balance. In other words, I don't have all the facts. You know, I can only. Being a police officer would be tough. You'd have to make the best judgments you can. But come on, fair go. Be a merciful, generous officer who says, well, how do I live? What do I do? You know, can I be? You know, it's not all about the letter of the law. So, Diane, Ecclesiastes 5:8. And that's what the Lord meant when he said, they tried to trap him. They wanted to hear, he said, should we pay taxes to these oppressive Romans? And they wanted him to say, like, pay off. We're Jews, we belong to God. So he said, give me a coin. Whose stamp is on it? Ownership. Whose ownership is on it? Whose head is on it? Caesar's. Well, give to Caesar what's Caesar's, and give to God what's God. And the subtext there is, whose head are you carrying around, Caesar? Well, where did Caesar get his stamp from? Where do we get our image and stamp from? God. So, render to man what's man's, and render to God, even Caesar needs to submit and obey to God. So without actually trapping himself, he didn't deny the truth. He didn't say don't pay taxes, but he also said even Caesar will have to give account and pay taxes and dues to a higher ordering system. And so do we all. Yes, that's very, very powerful. Matthew 20:16. So the last shall be first, and the first last, for many be called, but few chosen. And the Greek, or the particular verb in there, can be interposed. It can be few have chosen, or few are chosen. And it changes it, okay? Last will be first, and the first are last, but many are called, and few have chosen. Putting the power back in our seat, what we need to do. 1 Peter 3:8, finally be ye of all one mind, having compassion one to another. Love as brethren, be pitiful, be courteous. There's that compassion and charity, because you're a sacred being, a sacred soul. And I don't have to like all your choices and values and decisions, but I must respect that God made you. And I must support you in why he made you, your real calling. And Micah 6:8, he that showed thee, O man, what is good, and what doth the Lord require of thee? Do justly, love mercy, walk humbly with thy God. So that's a good spot for me to sort of bring the second certainty about fairness. Here's the second certainty. Pick your battles. Be sure the Lord has asked you to pick that fight. Because you cannot be certain of all the facts. You cannot. But you can be certain of this. The Lord wants you always in every situation to be merciful, to consider others, and to be fair. Isn't it? Regardless of what anyone else is doing, he wants us to act and live that way and be a light. So they're the two certainties. You can trust God regardless of what your senses are saying. And two, you know that God wants you to always maintain that mercy, humility and justice and fairness for others. Okay. So let's flip over back to this beautiful passage from Secrets of Heaven. You see the line rule under there? That's what I really wanted to get to, but it was a bit out of context. So we put the other first bit. This is taken from Swedenborg's giving the spiritual sense of where Abraham's coming into a foreign land and he's a stranger. And that's where the whole spiritual message here is coming from. I am a stranger, an inhabitant among you. That's what the scripture says. And this means that the first state when, although the Lord was not known to them, he was nevertheless able to be with them. Think about the first times you came to know the Lord. You maybe felt a calling to come to church. Something was drawing you, but you hadn't figured God out yet. You don't really know who God is or what's going on. Right there, Swedenborg's saying the Lord is with you right now, present with you, even in that moment. He's saying, this is clear from the representation of Abraham as the Lord, often dealt with already, and from the meaning of being a stranger among them and being an inhabitant among them, as not being known. Don't quite know who the Lord is yet. It is evident from what comes before and after that this is the internal sense, for the subject is a new church to come. And in this verse, the first state of that church is being addressed. This state is such that, first of all, they do not know the Lord. Not yet. Because they lead good and charitable lives, and in public life they are just and fair, and in private life they're honourable and correct, they are the kind of people with whom the Lord is able to be present. For the Lord is present with man in good, and so in justice and fairness, and further still with honourableness and correctness. And how different this is to the older fundamental view that Christian churches have had. You come to church, sinner, and God is with you. But he's not there with those sinners out there who won't come. Well, actually, no, it's the opposite. What Swedenborg is saying is that wherever you see goodness and fairness and justice, that's where the Lord's real church is. I love the way Bill says, he says there's a blue collar out there in New Church rising up. And it's among truck drivers and these people and those people and nurses or whatever. Deep down, they believe in God. Do they go to church? No, maybe not. But they believe in good. They believe in being fair. They believe in living a just and fair life. And the Lord can be present with that. That's the church. That's the new church that he's looking for. And once again, tells us why these virtues are so valuable. We have values, and they need to take form. So we learn virtues. Kindness, thoughtfulness, gentleness, whatever the fruit of the Spirit is. And so let's have a look on the card to take with you today. Fairness is the power and the insight to consider the needs and the wants of all. Why? Because they're sacred creatures. They're sacred souls. Quote, a king who judges the poor with fairness, his throne will be established forever. Proverbs 29. And from the writings, 4,783, the adherents to faith separated from charity can have no other belief than that the works of charity consist solely in giving to the poor and helping the distressed. That's their idea of charity. Find an organisation and give to the poor. And that's because they have this funny idea that your faith is somehow separated from your life, from charity. This belief, too, they substantiate from a sense of the letter of the word. But in fact, the works of charity consist in each person doing what is right and fair in their employment, from a love of what is right and fair, and of what is good and true. So I go to church and I give to this charity. I, therefore, must be just and fair. No. Are you skimping at work? Are you ripping, are you not paying your employee properly? Cheating on your tax? Are you doing this? Or are you living out of a conviction of fairness? Okay? Are you being fair? That's what we're being challenged here with. Get it out into the everyday world of your life. That's where it really matters. Okay. So let's close with the meditation or any final comments. Is there any final... I will in a second. Is there any final comments on fairness? Do we feel we have a better understanding of this virtue? There you go, mate. Next time you hear an Aussie say that, I wish we'd hear it more, will know that their spirit man is crying out for more of God. There you go, mate. They're crying out for God. Yes, let's read the meditation together. I believe in opportunities for all. I seek to be a doer of right more than being right. I long to see justice as the standard of all governance and leadership. I am careful to make my transactions a 360-degree, all-round win for everyone. I show respect to all and expect such treatment in return. I am thankful, Lord, for your gift of fairness. It creates community and emulates the kingdom of heaven. Amen. Lord, we stretch this forward to you and we say thank you for every breath, for every thought, for every feeling, for the gift of today. Let this money be a token of our gratitude. Let it go forth into your hands and let it be used to bring more good into this world that people may know you. Amen. So friends, let's have a cup of tea. I'll close the word. Can we sing a new commandment as we do that? Is it in the tradition that Les left us? A new commandment? We're going to get that for Tracy. I'll lead us in, but we'll get the words so that his countenance upon you. The Lord make his face shine upon your day. The Lord grant to you his everlasting. Let's have a cup of tea. Hydrate our brain. It's a fair time for a cup of tea. You all right? You get too fast?
No, no.
Was it?
Later.
Oh, the candle. I thought.
Candles, yeah.
Oh, my dear. My sweating.
You'll have to get one of those things on your computer so that we have that. The new commandment.
I put the words up. I can type it out. I'll just sit there and type it out.
A lot of people.
Don't know it. That's a great idea. It's a really good idea. Oh, sorry.
Oh, look out. You can't go home.
I don't have a cup of tea. That's a good idea. I'll do that. I'll put the new commandment up on the word.
At the end of the year. Yeah, I just thought
Words
a lot
aren't.
of people there. We don't have it in the.
Last week we did the Lord's Prayer. I'm going to start putting that on the screen for Sacred Circle. So I did the Lord's Prayer and everyone was doing different versions, so it was all good.
Yes.